Oh, hello there. Well, hello there. Welcome to the stream. I'm Father Roderick, ready to record this week's episode of my weekly show, my podcast, and also available as a live stream. And if you're watching this live, then, well, that's what you're watching. I've got a little BB-8 here as my companion today, all awaiting kind of the refurbishment of the studio and making it look a little bit more cozy. For now, BB-8 will have to do. And I've got a ton of topics to talk about, and I will waste no more time and get going as usual at the end of the show. If you have any comments, if you have any questions, then feel free to put them in the comments, and I'll get to that later on. While I'm doing the show, I usually don't really have much time to look at the chat, but it's not because I dislike you or want to ignore you. It's just that I can't do two things at the same time. All right, let's get going. Hello and welcome to my weekly show. I'm Father Roderick, and it is a gorgeous day outside. The sun is shining. We have a little bit of summer left, it seems, but I'm sitting here inside with the curtains closed and a microphone on because it's time to record a new show. So sit back and relax and enjoy the show. This episode is brought to you thanks to my patrons. They help me with a small or not so small financial contribution every month, and that helps me to keep this show entirely free from advertisements and sponsorships and that kind of stuff. If you want to join that community of patrons, go over to patreon.com/FatherRoderick, and in return, as a thank you, I will give you an extra podcast every week that's exclusively available to my patrons, and coming very soon, my first Ireland documentary that I'm currently editing. And it's going to be awesome. And I hope that if you are a patron, you will enjoy it.
Do you know what's going on? This is what's happening in your world.
Face it, Catholics rule. We got Boston, South America, the good part of Ireland, and we're making serious inroads in Mozambique, baby.
You've taken your first step into a larger world.
I am still reeling from a fight that I had yesterday evening. And it was a tough fight. It hurt. My hand was bleeding. I still have pain, like muscle ache from the exertion of the fight, and it could have ended very, very badly. But fortunately, I got the upper hand, and I was able to overcome the problem. And no, I wasn't in a fight with another human being. I was actually fighting with the Millennium Falcon, of all things. This ship that I've been building with Lego for the past, 3-4 days now. And yesterday evening, I'm recording this on Monday morning, so on Sunday afternoon, I'd been doing a little bit of building, but I'm not always streaming everything live, so I figured, I'm just going to build some stuff in advance, and then when I switch on the live stream on YouTube, I'll just put the things together very calmly. We'll have plenty of time to chat, because that's why I do these live streams, of course. It's not really about the Lego building, it's about the community. And I will just have a very nice, relaxing end of my day. Well, little did I know that piece of junk was gonna cause me so many problems. What happened? So right now I've built the framework of the Falcon, and this is a huge set. It's 5,500 pieces. It weighs a ton. It's 4 or 5 kilograms. So as you can imagine, that skeleton that carries all these pieces has to be super solid. So that was made with technical Lego, which is slightly different from the Legos that you played with as a child. It doesn't really have a shape. It's just these structures, very, very strong, rugged constructions with pins and holes and whatnot. All that was ready, and then that entire skeleton had to rest on landing gear. So the Falcon has 5 feet, I think. 7. I think 7 feet on which it rests. And of course, the Lego set also has that. So I was building these supports, and then I discovered that actually I'm missing very vital pieces. This is a secondhand set, and the previous owner had warned me there may be some stuff missing. Well, that was the first problem that I had to tackle. So how do I solve that? And of course, it's like, it's not just cosmetic stuff that is missing, but really structural things that if I leave them out, then the structure, the entire ship becomes unstable. Now, in a certain way, the Falcon is always a bit unstable, but I really needed to make sure that this landing gear was built in the way that it was meant to be. So my first challenge was to find pieces in my inventory. I've got some older Lego, and see if I can somehow fix that. And I found similar pieces, not exactly the same. Some had the wrong color. But I figured this is what Han would do, right? Han and Chewie, they're constantly modifying the Falcon. If you remember what it looked like in Lando's early days when it was this shiny, beautiful white ship with blue accents, and then the inside was all shiny and new and fancy. And then you later on see the Falcon when Han Solo and Chewie have been flying that thing for a decade, and it's all grimy and dirty, and they've been making all sorts of special modifications, which are really upsetting to Lando because he can't believe how awful the ship looks from since the last time he saw it. And I figured the kind of what I'm doing right now is piecing together a Falcon with lots of extra components, with hacks, with little solutions. And so that kind of made it fun to try to figure out how to make that work, even though pretty important stuff is missing. There's one element that I'll have to order online. It's pretty vital thing that can't be replaced by anything else. It's a kind of looks like a ladder. It's a plastic piece that goes over the hyperdrive engine. So you have the blue engine on the rear of the ship, and that is covered with a grill. And I only have half of it. So the other one, I'll have to order that. This is going to be the first time ever that I have to go to one of those specialized Lego shops, online shops, that can sell you almost any Lego element that's out there. And what these shops do is they buy new or secondhand sets, but instead of building them, they just disassemble them, and they sell these individual pieces based on the rarity. And so sometimes they will buy an entire set for, I don't know, $100 just for that one element that they can sell for like $50 per element, and then they'll sell the rest for 2-3 cents a piece. But they will still make money on that, even though they're not selling the original set. So that will probably be solved. And so I was glad that by the end of the evening, before I started streaming, I had 7 feet for the landing gear. And then I was like, okay, I'm just going to stream that, and it's going to be enjoyable and nice and relaxing. And so I put these, I had to turn the ship upside down, and then you had to slot in every piece of the landing gear. And so there were some holes in the internal technical Lego structure. So I kind of pushed it in, made sure it was really fixed in place, because that's going to carry the entire ship. So everything was in place. I turn it around. I look at the manual, and I discovered that I had forgotten very important pieces on the landing gear. And so I had to take those feet off the structure again, trying to pry them loose from the underlying technical skeleton in order to fit these pieces on there. And that turned out to be such a fight. If you go to my YouTube channel and check for the episode of, I think it's, August 18, you will see that it starts really gentle, and I'm super happy that I was able to find a solution for the landing gear. And then I try to get the stuff deconstructed, and I almost destroy the Falcon. And it is a physical fight. And literally, my thumb, it's still a bit dented. It was bleeding from I tried to pry loose. There were these rods, these plastic black rods. And because I had forgotten a few of those elements, I had stuck them way too deep into the structure, and I couldn't pry them loose anymore. It was impossible, and then it's plastic, so you have no grip on it. So I was using so much strength, so much energy, that like half of the ship came apart. And I was like, it went from bad to worse. It was a really, really tough evening. And I can still feel it literally in my shoulders, and most of all, because I was hunched over the thing, and I was also streaming it, so I had to adjust the camera. And well, it was an incredible challenge. Now, someone in the chat said to me, that will make once it's finished, the final result so much more valuable because you will have invested so much in it. No kidding! Oh my goodness. I didn't think, I was actually quite happy that the whole build was going much easier. It was easier to do, went much better than my first big Lego project, which was a Hogwarts Castle, which really caused a lot of headaches. But, never underestimate the problems that a simple Lego set can bring you. Anyway, if you want to follow me, go check it out on my YouTube channel.
How do you not like movies?
They're predictable. Like, the guy gets the girl, and that kid sees dead people, and Darth Vader is Luke's father.
Not liking movies is like not liking puppies.
They're fine. I just get bored and never make it to the end.
You know, you need a movie education. You need a movication. I'm gonna give it to you.
Yeah. Today it is time for a retro review of a movie that I've seen I don't know how many times.
Ghosts.
And it's about this.
Hello,
Ghosts.
Ghostbusters.
They're real.
You do?
They're mean.
You have?
They're here.
Well, you know the drill. It is time for the Ecto-1 to race through the streets of New York City on its way to a hotel that is haunted.
They catch the ghost that won't stay dead. They're armed. They're dangerous.
Try to imagine all life as you know it stopping instantaneously and every molecule in your body exploding at the speed of light.
All right, that's bad. Okay. All right, important safety tip. Thanks, Egon.
They're professionals.
Oh, I'm the chairman of the largest paranormal removal company in America.
Bill Murray, Dan Aykroyd, and Harold Ramis, of course. The three Ghostbusters, later on joined by a fourth one. And they are ridding the city of this threat of all these ghosts and these Old Testament menaces.
Your girlfriend lives in the corner penthouse of Spook Central.
You want this body?
Is this a trick question?
And especially Bill Murray this is one of his breakout roles. He is so hilarious, and a lot of the dialogue was just they came up with it on the spot. It was improvised, and it works so well up until the very end.
Ghostbusters.
Oh well, Ghostbusters.
Starring Bill Murray.
And the reason that I'm reviewing the movie again is that, of course, as you know, they're working on the third sequel. Actually, the second sequel, because there's already been Ghostbusters 2. There's going to be a third movie based on the original story of Ghostbusters. Of course, we had the female Ghostbusters last year. Was it last year or was it the year before? And you know that I wasn't a fan of that particular incarnation of the franchise. But now that a lot of the original people that were involved in Ghostbusters from 1984 are working on this third movie, I couldn't be happier. And I was curious. The movie was on Netflix, and I don't think I'd seen it before. And it is the remastered version. So Ghostbusters, of course, being from 1984, was filmed on celluloid. However you pronounce that. And so they scanned it in again. They cleaned up the print. And I was curious to see what it would look like in HD. And it actually, it's mixed. It really shows its age. There's a lot of grainy footage. I think it's because the film was not done on like these big negatives, but they in order to save money, this was still a relatively low budget movie. It's hard to believe with the success it has had, and it's such a cult classic. And so instead of, I think on 32 millimeter, did they shoot it on 16 millimeters? Anyway, they used kind of subpar quality material, which results in just a very, very grainy image. Now, the thing is, with the remaster, you actually see way more grain than in previous versions on Blu-ray and on DVD, because then they would denoise it in software. And that was, for a while, that was really a thing that a lot of studios did. They kind of felt that you couldn't show people the grainy stuff on their high-resolution TVs, so they would digitally remove the grain. The effect, of course, is everything looks kind of plasticky and fake. The grain also kind of gives structure, gives a certain reality to the picture, to the image. And if you brush it away, you can still see that it's old footage, but then the faces become almost like, I don't know, CGI and really looking very unnatural. Then it would also often color correct the movie again. So color correction means you look at the footage and then you up certain colors. You kind of balance the color, the grades of color in the image. I do that a lot when I edit my own television episodes, especially in low light. Oftentimes what happens is the colors are much more muted, and they're certainly not as vibrant as you remember it, because your eye, of course, has way more ability to see in darker situations and adapts itself. So when you see the footage back, I had that recently with the Ireland footage, the stuff that I filmed in the evening looks very washed out. And so in color grading, you up the saturation. Sometimes you also up the brightness, or you enhance the contrast. Well, what they would do with these older movies is also do that, but then it becomes way too vibrant, and that in combination with the denoising, everything looks extremely artificial and unnatural. So with the recent remaster, they tried to stay as close as possible to the original, just trying to scan it in from a very clean negative, correcting in digitally also the little scratches. They did that with Star Wars too, from the original Star Wars trilogy. They did very high resolution scans, and even if you clean and wash the entire original print of the movie, there will still be stuff left. And in some of the scenes, especially in New Hope, you can notice that the current Blu-ray version, so the special editions that Lucas made, there are really jarring changes in the quality of the image. Some of the shots, like there is a Star Destroyer shot, I think, was so bad, the original material was so bad, that Lucas decided to film it again. And so there are some scenes in there, and especially with the special additions, so the CGI stuff that he put in, all that stuff looks way too clean and way too new, and it's very weird to all of a sudden go back to grainy material. With Ghostbusters, everything is grainy, so that's not a problem. And you also see that the special effects, which as a child I remember seeing this movie, being I think in high school, and I was like, oh, this is so amazing. We've never seen special effects like that. But by today's standards, of course, it looks extremely fake and superimposed. And you see a lot of these, where they remove the background, what's it called again? I forgot. Anyway, you see lines around. There's at one point, there's this hellhound that breaks out or breaks loose. And I think it's stop motion animations, and it's pretty well done. I really like the design of that dog. But it is so fake. It is really, there's not a single moment that you think that thing could be real. And it almost makes me long for like a special edition of Ghostbusters, because there are ways to kind of touch up the special effects a little bit. Again, Lucas did that with, for instance, the X-Wing fighters. In the original version, the one that was shown in theaters at the launch of that movie, everything that was filmed with blue screen, because they were not using green screen at the time, it was all blue screen. Everything had huge lines because every shot, every special effects shot was the background was taken out manually, and you would have these lines around the spaceships, which makes it look pretty fake. So what Lucas did was he went in with a lot of money and a lot of people, and they manually removed all those lines. So they have, of course, much more powerful software to remove those matte lines. And so that's why the version that we now know of that movie actually looked pretty good. You can still see that it's all analog special effects, nothing digital in there except for the additions like the digital version of Mos Eisley that looks horrible, by the way, like the land speeder just entering the city and the stupid jokes with the Javas, etc. It's really, really bad taste. But anyway, but for the rest, a lot of the special effects have just been kind of improved a little bit, but it's all done, I think, very well, and I think Ghostbusters would benefit from that, even from grading the movie again a little bit, because it still looks a bit washed out. But anyway, it was what of course makes the movie so great is not the quality of the footage or the special effects. It's the chemistry of the cast. It is a really, really funny movie with, I think, a really great role for Sigourney Weaver. This was in her early days, I think even before she filmed Alien. And she's still totally Sigourney Weaver. If you watch her more recent work, remember Avatar, even though that's not even recent anymore, she's instantly recognizable. She's got the same face, the same style. It's amazing to see how consistent she has been in her acting career. And so I'm super excited that they're bringing her back for the third movie as well. So let me see if they actually, because of course not everyone is alive anymore. What did they say on IMDb? Because there was this teaser trailer, if you remember, that we saw, which was just basically the back of the let me see, Ghostbusters 3. You see the back of the original Ecto 1, I think. Ghostbusters 2020. The plot, of course, is undisclosed. We have a trailer, and I think there are some set photos as well. So confirmed right now, Bill Murray is kind of rumored to come back as Peter Venkman, although he had this cameo in the female Ghostbusters movie, and I thought it was one of the worst ingredients of that movie. It totally didn't work. Sigourney is going to be back as Dana Barrett. Annie Potts is Janine Melnitz. I think she's the lady that answers the phone. Yeah, what do you want? Very much kind of a caricature of what people associate with the New York, attitude. Dan Aykroyd is going to be back as Dr. Raymond Stantz, and Bokeem Woodbine is Sheriff Domingo. So the cast is there are some other names that are mentioned, but we don't know what they play. And let me see if I can find the trailer again. It's been a while since I saw that one. So Ghostbusters 3. Let's see if they have something new. Sometimes I just have to Google it. Teaser trailer. Everything we know so far. Ghostbusters 3, Stay Puft Marshmallow spotted. That is cool. So maybe that leaked out. That is awesome if they bring back, because the marshmallow guy, that is one of the most iconic things of that movie. Let's see. I think it is right here. The teaser trailer, Sony Pictures. So this is from Sony Pictures. Interesting. Let's play it again. It's been a while. You see a house Very dark environment. Thunderstorm. This is like a barn. Similar music from the first movie. Very cool. Something there in that shed and you don't know what it is. It's covered by a piece of cloth. And it's the Ecto. And this, of course, is the sound of those plasma guns firing up. Don't cross the streams. This is a genius trailer because what it does so well is it brings back kind of the slow pace of Ghostbusters. This is a movie from the 80s, and it struck me again how much more relaxed those movies are. Nowadays, everything is so overproduced, and we need a new shot every second, whereas this Ghostbusters movie has a lot of scenes that just go on and on. It's almost comedy improv. And I think it gives the movie, it's imperceptible, but subconsciously, it gives the movie a different pace. There are moments that are super exciting, but they almost they are more exciting to see because the rest of the movie is kind of slow. And this trailer kind of brings back that atmosphere of the 80s, the style of filming, the visual style, but also the kind of the pacing. And that is, I think, why the female Ghostbusters also went wrong. They just totally did not capture the vibe. It's much more than just the script or the jokes. It's the vibe, the feeling that you get, that you associate with Ghostbusters. And I think what they are going to do with the third movie is really trying to mimic that style. And from the looks of it, I think they're going to succeed. So that is something super cool to look forward to. And then I got a tip for another movie to check out. I haven't seen it yet, but I didn't know that it was on Netflix. And someone said it's a very impressive movie. It's also, not an easy movie to watch. And it's called Novitiate. It's from Sony Picture Classics. And here's a little bit of the trailer. It's about nuns.
A nun? Oh, Kathleen. You're a 17-year-old girl.
I was called, and I'm going to become a nun, and there's really nothing that you can say that's going to make me change my mind.
Good afternoon, all of you. Since, unfortunately, God can't be here to run this convent himself, my voice will serve as a stand-in for his. You'll be spending the next 6 months as postulants. After that, you'll enter the novitiate. Any questions? Put your hand down, sister. Postulants don't have questions. And you are free to go home.
So that is the first part of the trailer. I'll play more of it next week when I'm reviewing the movie. According to the description, this movie spanning over a decade from the early 1950s through the mid-60s, Novitiate is about a young girl's first initiation with love, in this case, with God. Raised by a non-religious single mother in a rural Tennessee, a scholarship to Catholic schools soon finds Kathleen drawn into the mystery and romanticism of a life devoted to the worship and servitude of God. Now, this all takes place kind of in the prelude to the Second Vatican Council, major change in the Catholic Church, and apparently, especially the older nuns have big trouble adjusting to these changes and feel very menaced, whereas the younger generation of nuns kind of embraces this opening up, and then, of course, drama ensues. I will let you know what I thought of the movie in next week's episode. Since we're already talking about Catholics, let's visit the Peculiar Bunch.
Catholics rock! Catholics can be a peculiar bunch. No meat on Friday.
Oh, meat? What do they eat? Light bulbs?
Today I have a number of questions that were asked by the people in the chat room while I'm building Legos. There's always interesting discussion going on.
Man, you guys got more crazy rules than Blockbuster Video.
I sometimes forget to stress the kind of the conversations that we have during those Lego sessions. It may seem, if you're watching that on YouTube, that it's super boring. It's just a guy in a not so well lit studio or on a table putting Lego stuff together. I don't really have better lighting. I don't have a very good camera. I'm just filming that with a webcam. So all of that, not much for the average viewer, especially if you're not into Legos. But what I think is the real value of those sessions are the questions that my viewers ask, and we have just great conversations about faith, about life, about science fiction, about books, about almost anything that you can imagine. And I guess if I would if I would cut out all the Lego conversation, then that in itself I think could be the content for a weekly show. But of course, that is way too much work, and I just don't have the time to kind of prepare these sessions. But from time to time, I may take a few of the questions that were asked or a couple of the discussions that we had during those Lego sessions and bring them into this show so that I can share them with a larger audience. And so I have a few questions that emerged in the past few building sessions right from the hangar of the Millennium Falcon while I was building the Falcon, or some stuff that came up in the chat room. First of all, I remember a conversation with one of the viewers, one of the visitors, who said that he had been struggling with alcohol usage or abuse. And that at one point he really had a wake-up call because he was diagnosed with alcohol poisoning, and it was life-threatening. And ever since that happened to him, he's trying to step away from that addiction, and he was asking for advice and for help. And I was really moved by just the openness with which the discussion took place, and also the other people in the chat room were also chiming in and supporting, and that's kind of the beauty sometimes of internet communities. It's so beautiful that there are still places where people are not fighting each other, or not hating on each other, but are helping each other and are truly supportive. So my answer to that question was that, of course, I'm not a therapist. I have limited experience with situations like that. But what I suggested was actually always look for, or ask yourself, and try to find some other people that can support you in that discernment. What is a real reason that alcohol took over in my life, and that I went from bad to worse? What is a real... The addiction is kind of the symptoms. It's a symptom of something deeper. What were you trying to compensate with alcohol? And there's many other addictions that you can fill in here. But what was the original reason for you to use alcohol? What were you trying to numb? What were you trying to compensate for? And if you don't answer that question, if you can't figure that out, then it's very hard to step away from it, because the alcohol took over for a reason. And then the second advice, and that was also given by a lot of people in the chat room, is build a new support structure. Step away from friends that will that risk to bring you back into that addiction. If you have a lot of friends and you go out with them and they drink and you're the only one who doesn't drink, it's very hard to resist the peer pressure. The same is true for all sorts of other addictions. Smoking comes to mind. If you want to try to stop smoking, make sure that you get rid of people in your environment that smoke and that don't want to help you and support you in your quest to get rid of the smoking habit. And if necessary, find new friends, maybe people that already have gone through that process of stepping away from an addiction, because they have a reason to support you. They know what you're going through. So try to build a new support structure, because friendship is one of the most effective remedies against any type of addiction. And this is not just a kind of common sense, but recently I was listening to a TED Talk about that. And it was pretty revolutionary. They did research where they saw that in they had test groups. One group that was trying to go cold turkey, but just leading the same lifestyle as before, no change in environment, no change in social environment. And then the other group also quit cold turkey, but surrounded themselves with friends, with supportive friends. And it turns out that in almost all the cases, the group that surrounded themselves with friends were more successful and were able to quit longer than the other group. And some of them even quit completely. And almost all of them later on said that the loneliness was one of the most important factors in creating the addiction in the first place. And I thought that was fascinating and also a bit worrying, because how many people suffer from loneliness in this hyper-connected world? From what I hear, more people than ever before struggle with loneliness. And a lot of the contexts that we have online are very superficial. They're very kind of empty. You may have a lot of friends in a certain way, between quotation marks, but you may end up without any real friends, people that you meet in real life, people that stand by you. And so if we are made to have friends, we need a social environment. God did not create us on an island alone, or gave each of us, and he could have done that. Planets enough in the universe. He could have given all of us our own little private planet, right? Have you ever wondered why all of us are on the same planet? Well, maybe it is because in God's design, he wanted us to need each other, to have each other, to share this world, because sharing is what makes us so similar to God himself, who is shared love between the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. So he wanted us to be all together on this same planet. That's just kind of my idea. It's not theology here, speculation. But anyway, if you want to solve addiction, first try to find what is the hole in your soul that addiction is trying to fill. And of course, you all know that any addiction can't fill that hole. It can only be filled with love and with friendship. And as long as you don't use that to fill the hole, then the addiction will still be always this menace, this danger. So that was a very cool, interesting discussion, and also made me think. That's what I like about these discussions. I don't always have the answers, but in a conversation, you kind of together figure out what are the important elements that can help someone. Another question, a recurring question that I always get, especially by new visitors, new viewers, is about celibacy and about my life as a celibate priest. And it's always, well, if celibacy was optional, if the Pope would allow you to marry, would you have a family? Would you like to be a father? And my answer is always, I'd love to be a father. I would love to have had a family. I think I would really enjoy passing on my own geekiness to a new generation. But I was called for a greater love. And it's not greater in terms of discarding marriage or anything. But for me, it was greater. I wanted to dedicate my life to God, even maybe before I wanted to become a priest. I only discovered that I was called to be a priest after I had felt this desire to share my life with God for the rest of my life. That was my first intuition. I want to be with God. I want to dedicate my life to God for the rest of my life. And that is a 100% choice. And then it was later on in Lourdes that I discovered, well, God wants me to become a priest. So, hey, that makes sense. And I still think that is a vital distinction, because, as you know, the priesthood is of course formally linked to a celibate life, but not in its essence. That is church law that asks priests in the West to be unmarried and to live a celibate life. In other parts of the world, in other traditions, priests can marry and are married. The apostles were married, so it's not intrinsically linked to the priesthood. And still, I consider it to be a great value and something that I would have chosen even. And that was another question: would you live a celibate life if you hadn't been a priest? And I answered yes. I would still be leading a celibate life. Maybe I would have been, I don't know, a brother in a religious community or a third order member. But I think the choice would have been the same. And then the third question that we talked about recently was about the Jedi. I always have a lot of Star Wars fans because a lot of people are following me on YouTube because of my Star Wars reviews. And that was... Are the Jedi a true religion? Is that a religion? Is the values that we see in the Star Wars movies and the stories, is that, can you define that as being a religion? In some countries, was it in the UK? It's even recognized as a valid option. If the government wants to know what religion you belong to, you can put Jedi in there, which I think is totally ridiculous because it's not a religion. The Jedi... There are similarities to a religion. There are some elements that Lucas took from existing religions and existing philosophies, lifestyles, like, for instance, the Jedi are required to live in total dedication to their state as a Jedi, so they're not allowed to marry because they have to dedicate themselves undividedly to the protection of the universe and to the people. So again, very similar to what the Catholic Church asks priests. It's total dedication. So you live your life dedicated to God and to His flock. But in the Star Wars movies, there is not much else to it. Yeah, there is this dedication to the Force. But again, the Force is a very impersonal, kind of intuitive energy source. There is not really, I mean, The Last Jedi hinted at the old books, the ancient books that Luke was keeping in his cave, and that Rey was able to smuggle out of out of what was the name of the planet, those islands, and took them with her in the Millennium Falcon. But Yoda then says, well, those are just books, and there are a number of other kind of simple philosophies, the values of the Jedi, anger leads to hate, hate leads to suffering. There seems to be kind of this Buddhist, is it called impassibility, that a real good Jedi should have, so no emotions. It really annoyed me when Obi-Wan in the Clone Wars? Anyway, is constantly berating Anakin that his emotions take over and he's not allowed to have emotions. And I'm thinking, okay, because what is the problem? They cloud your judgment. Well, Yoda seems to have a lot of emotions. He's got a sense of humor. He's sad. He's angry. He's impatient. So, but a few of those generic values are not enough to form a belief system. And I think the thing lacking in the Jedi view or the Jedi philosophy is basically a leading message. What is the purpose? The values, on what are they for? Where does it lead to? The Force has no face, has no personality, has no identity. So it is a bit hollow, everything. And where is the tradition? That's another element, very important in religion, religious texts, founders, prophets. Yeah, there is this very vague prophecy, but we don't really get to know where it's from. There are no real, we know there's the Journal of the Wills, but what's in there, Star Wars doesn't care to explain. There is this horrible midichlorian stuff in the prequels where all of a sudden it's not a religion anymore, but it's all biology or some kind of supernatural biology. But anyway, it's like a biochemical complexion that people can have or can't have, and so. And then the reason why it's Jedi can't be a true religion is it is a fictional story. Now, people may say, well, that's true for Christianity as well. It's based on fiction. It's a fairy tale book. But the big thing that they forget is that there are, and historians are very much in agreement about that. There's a lot of historical foundation for the Bible stories. And as I've explained before, it's not that the Bible is a history book or an eyewitness account or a scientific book. It's a storybook, but the stories stem from historical events. And then the story and storytelling, sometimes over generations of oral tradition, add layers of meaning to those events, just as you do with your own life. Stuff happens to you. And then in retrospect, you tell yourself, well, that happened at the time. It seemed to be a disaster, no upside to it at all. But now it helped me learn. It helped me to become who I am today. So you add layers of interpretation to the events in your own life. And there's nothing wrong with that. That is how we learn. That's how we transmit values, through stories, through interpretation of what happens. But the thing is, in the Bible, those historic events are there, and they are also provable outside of the realm of religion and religious writing. The existence of Jesus, there's not an historian who will say, well, that was a fictional figure. No. Moses is a different conversation. Moses, there are quite a few historians that say, well, Moses is basically a mythological figure, and a lot of the stories that you read in the Exodus are myths. There is no archaeological proof for the presence of Jews in Egypt, and so I recently listened to an interesting episode of Skeptoid, which is a skeptic podcast, and he was making the case for the fact that the story of Moses was basically just a mythology. I would say, let science disprove it, and let science prove it. The Catholic Church is very relaxed when it comes to this kind of stuff. There can only be one truth, and scientific truth cannot contradict religious truth. So bring it on. But I would say you have to have really strong arguments to discard the one of the most founding stories in the Jewish tradition as just fiction, as just a fairy tale. We all know that is an old story. And so it has a lot of these extra layers of interpretation, but it doesn't mean that nothing happened. But we also know that, for instance, the whole story of the Red Sea, that's not really going from one coastline to the other coastline. If that happened, then it's probably just a detour through part of a part of the sea or something like that. But anyway, a lot of the kind of the images that we have in our head are sometimes not even based on what the story itself tells us. Like, for instance, the apple that seduces Eve. Then in every painting you see Adam and Eve with an apple. Well, there's nowhere in the Bible does it say that it's an apple. It's fruit from a tree. And then, is there only one tree? There are two trees in that story. Go look it up. So there's a lot of this. The nativity scene, the ox and the donkey. It's in every nativity scene, but it's not in the Bible. Spoiler. That was later on added by St. Francis. So I'm always in these situations is like, look at the evidence, ask archaeologists. And even if certain aspects of the story are interpretations, are added later on, don't have an historical, I would say a lot of the Bible stories do have historical events at the source, but not everything in it is eyewitness history, right? It's just as even in our modern days, we think that we know everything, but especially if you live in the US right now, everything is spin. It really depends on what kind of television channel you watch. If you watch Fox News and MSNBC, and they both tell the story of the same day and the same president, they will have sometimes completely opposite narratives. And so it's interpretation. It's part of our perception of history. Our history itself is storytelling as well. How did I get onto this tangent? I forgot. We were talking about Jedi and religion. So the difference is Bible stories are based in historic events, whereas the Jedi, that's based on an imaginary tale that George Lucas invented, and then other writers started adding to it. So, yeah. But interesting discussion. Anyway, it's time to move on. Dive into the world of books.
When did you become an expert in thermonuclear astrophysics?
Last night. The packet. The extraction theory papers. Am I the only one who did the reading?
Well, now that I have finished this huge, massive book about Peter Jackson and the creation of Middle-earth, I've started to listen to another audiobook, and I am so enjoying it. I'm so happy that this book was in the library of that audiobook service that I'm subscribed to. The book is called The Happiest Days of Our Lives, and it's written by Wil Wheaton, Wesley from Star Trek The Next Generation. And it is a really enjoyable audiobook. He also wrote this other book of I'm a Geek, or what was it called? Let me just look that up here. Let me show you. And he was mentioning that book. It's based on a lot of the blogs that he wrote. He's actually a very accomplished writer. I really enjoy his writing style. And he's been blogging for decades. Now let me look that up in Amazon, otherwise I can't play the sample here. So the book is just a collection of short stories, but the connecting theme is it's all part of his childhood stories. And Wil Wheaton had a very geeky childhood, and he's also kind of transmitting those values and the geeky lifestyle to his adoptive children. Wil Wheaton is married with a woman who has 2 children, 2 sons from a previous marriage. And Wil Wheaton has always called himself a stepfather out of respect for the biological father of his 2 kids. But for the rest, he really tries to be a real father for his kids. And I think he's doing a terrific job. And he talks about the values, audiobook, in one of the first chapters of the book, and it's moving. It's really moving. I've always liked Wil Wheaton. I may not always agree with his choices or life philosophy, but I still think he's an extraordinary guy and someone who's extremely honest. One of the things that he mentions often is how much his life has been tainted by depression and anxiety, and how he still tries to overcome that. And just recently, he thanked his followers for all the support that they have given him over the years, and how much the friendship that he has with his followers has helped him through a lot of the struggles in his life. I think that's beautiful. That's, again, someone who shows kind of the bright side of the internet and social media. So here's a little sample. I've tried to play this from the Polish website of Storytel. Let me see if that works. Oh, here it is.
It was also a very bad idea, because I ended up cutting several stories that I absolutely love. The Happiest Days of Our Lives, as published by Monolith Press, is still a nice little book, and it was very well received, but I haven't been able to shake the feeling that it could have been so much nicer if I... So here, Wil Wheaton, he's got a great narration as well. He also did the reading for Ready Player One, the audiobook, and Armada by Ernest Cline. Not the best book, but I think one of the redeeming factors of Armada is the fact that it was read by Wil Wheaton. He also
did a number of books from Cory Doctorow and some others. Let me see. There's a whole bunch of audiobooks, and I wasn't even aware that he did that. He's written another one, Dancing Barefoot. I think that is about his early days in television. And then he's got a recent novel that he wrote, Dead Trees Give No Shelter. But really recommend it. I really enjoyed that book. Also, interesting question that a lot of fans are asking themselves: Will Wil Wheaton be back in the world of Star Trek now that we know that Picard, the series on Netflix, is going to bring back a lot of the or a number of the original cast members of The Next Generation? There's even an online petition that people are signing to ask the writers to bring back Wil Wheaton as Wesley. And I think they should. They absolutely should. There's a photo on Instagram making the rounds that Wil Wheaton posted himself. By the way, it's Wil Wheaton on Instagram. That's his official account, where he poses. It's a picture from the 50th birthday party for Anne Wheaton, and she requested an 80s costume party, and he dressed himself up as Commander Riker from season 3 of The Next Generation. And so you see Wil Wheaton with the beard in an old classic Star Trek uniform, and the internet is going wild. There's like, oh, this is proof that Wil Wheaton needs to be back in Picard. And so I'm kind of looking at all the rumors to see if I can get a little glimmer of hope that we can see him back in Star Trek. Because famously, he got snubbed in the final cut of Star Trek Nemesis, where that starts with the wedding of Riker and what's her name? Anyway, and Wil Wheaton was originally there, and I think he's just in a glimpse in the background somewhere, but he also had a small speaking part, and they cut it. It ended up on the cutting room floor. It's not even on the special edition, I think, or in the extra deleted scenes. He was interviewed about that, the question whether he'd be up for returning in Star Trek Picard. He says, when they announced that the Picard series, I got excited for Star Trek in a way that I haven't been since the last season of Deep Space Nine, Wheaton said. I got so excited for it because I love Patrick and I love that character and the Next Generation timeline, which is also the Deep Space Nine timeline. It's the timeline that I love the most. It might be cheating a little bit because I was part of that timeline, so I'm emotionally invested in it, but I was a fan before I was part of the show, and I'm thrilled that we are going to get to see what Picard is doing now. I'm excited about that. And then he continues, I think it is very unlikely they will ask me to participate in it. I mean, I think it is just extraordinarily unlikely that will happen. If they did, I would say yes, of course. I think all of us would say yes. I think all of us, if we were given the opportunity to put on the spacesuits again and go work together and bring those characters back as they would be 30 years later, we would all say yes. And I don't think it's because we want the work. I don't think it's because we need the money. I don't think it's because we don't have other things to do. It's because we love each other so much. And an opportunity, even for a day, to return emotionally to some of the best times of our lives, I think that we would jump at that opportunity. That's what he said in an interview to... Where was his interview from? I am looking up the thing. It's not mentioned. This is, I found it on the website comicbook.com, but I think it's a quote from another article. Then there is also an article in the Metro newspaper about the same photo, and then they also ask him, that's the metro.co.uk, they talk to him. And then he says to them, it's been over 30 years since we did The Next Generation. Is it over 30 years? Oh my goodness, I'm getting old. And in a way, I feel like we had our time when we did our thing, and it's time to make room for new people, new characters, and new stories, he told us. Kind of the same things that the original cast from Star Wars 4, 5, and 6 said. It's like, yeah, our time is past. It's time for a new generation. But I think Star Wars is a great example of how you can blend in the old with the new. And I, for my part, am so excited that they are able to weave in the character of Leia into the final movie of the Skywalker saga. And that does not, I think, diminish in one way or another the contribution of the new actors. And then Wil continues, all of that being said, I would love the opportunity to work with them again. It would be like going home. I think that it could be a lot of fun to revisit that character, but I just don't see that happening. Now, never trust interviews like this. If he had been approached, then probably the next step would be negotiations, right? And of course, you're not going to spill the beans when you're in the middle or at the start of negotiations. So I think Wil Wheaton has such a great reputation with Star Trek fans that it would be foolish not to bring him back, especially because there is no reason to leave him out. He's one of the most open characters. His storyline just ended abruptly when he left the Enterprise. There's almost nothing that we know of his character, so they could make it so interesting. And he's a great actor, and he would bring with him the goodwill of so many Star Trek fans. So I predict that maybe not this season, but one of the future seasons, I think Wil Wheaton will be back. If he can be right now, he's described, and that just hurts me. On modern movie websites and TV websites, they describe him as Wil Wheaton from The Big Bang Theory. I was like, what? The Big Bang Theory? Come on! He's from Star Trek. That's just a cameo in The Big Bang Theory. Yes, I mean, he's great in The Big Bang Theory, but please, come on. It's like saying, oh, that's Father Roderick from the marathon video. Yeah, I do run marathons, but I'd rather be remembered as Father Roderick, the podcasting priest, or the Star Wars priest, whatever. but oh my goodness, Wil Wheaton and that's why I think he should be in Star Trek Picard. So at least people will again say, hey, that's Wil Wheaton from Star Trek.
We are on the cutting edge of technology.
Wow. Well, what does that mean?
Let's plug it in. It's going to say, hey, I see you plugged in a new device. And it's going to load in the appropriate drivers. You'll notice that this scanner build... Whoa.
Well, all your technology stuff, it just ends in disaster.
But there is one more thing.
I want to wrap up things with a very brief referral to last week's episode where I talked about VR and that I've kind of rediscovered my Oculus Go. And lo and behold, I found a very interesting article about VR and the role that it can play in pain relief. Now, I'm not suffering from pain other than kind of my Lego hands right now. But a lot of people have to live with chronic pain. Actually, it was also one of the conversations during the Lego sessions of someone who was struggling with very severe back pain. And it's crippling. It's really hard to blot it out. And that person said that watching me build the Lego stuff was actually helping with distracting from the pain. Well, it turns out that VR can be even more effective than watching YouTube streams or watching television. And according to recent research, VR, even if it's just a few sessions per day, can dramatically reduce the perception of pain in test groups. So here is what the research entailed. Research was done in a hospital where participants were undergoing treatment for various conditions. Some were experiencing pain linked to cancer, others had orthopedic pain. We divided the patients into two groups, the researcher explains. One group tried VR. They used Samsung's the Oculus headsets that were each fitted with a phone that had a VR app. Patients could select from a library of 21 VR experiences available on the app. They are actually, I think, referring to an existing app which is called Nature Tracks. I'll talk about it a little bit later. Nature Tracks allows you to enter virtual worlds. It's not a game, but you can just hang out in space or in a savanna or on a beach or multiple places. So they would allow people to immerse themselves into those VR experiences. They were free to use the VR devices as much as they liked, but were advised to aim for 3 daily sessions, 10 minutes per session. The other group of patients got to watch a health and wellness channel on TV as much as they wanted. We found that virtual reality reduced pain by about 3 times as much as watching TV did, said the researcher. Using a 0 to 10 pain scale, the virtual reality experience led to a 2-point drop in pain compared to a half drop point for watching TV. It's not exactly clear how VR works to help reduce pain perception, but pain specialists say that there are likely multiple explanations. Distraction is just one element. When the mind is deeply engaged in an immersive experience, it becomes difficult to perceive stimuli outside of the field of attention, Spiegel and his collaborators write in their journal paper. In other words, when something captures our attention and uses all our senses, we focus on it. It's like a spotlight, and everything else falls into darkness, at least temporarily. We all have that experience. Like yesterday, after I finished the Lego stream, I think that something got into the little wound on my thumb, and it was causing this throbbing pain. And I was focused on it. It's like, I gotta go to bed. But this hurts. What am I going to do? And then before I went to bed, I still watched a little bit of television, and then the pain just went away and subsided, and I forgot about it. And this morning I woke up, I was like, ow, my thumb hurts. And so even with television, it already helps you kind of forget about pain. There are also some questions. Distraction is helpful for pain. Researchers know that's an understood phenomenon, but why would VR be better than any other kind of distraction, they wonder. And so that is all still to find out. But there are a lot of very cheap ways to experience that for yourself or test it out if you suffer from chronic pain and you have a VR set like the Oculus One, for instance, or you can borrow it from someone. Try it out. And there are 2 apps that I can recommend that are both pretty stunning. One is called Nature Treks, as I said. And I don't think I have a trailer for that. Nature Treks VR. Let me see if they have a trailer. It's a brief overview and demonstration. The VR shop. Let me just click on this and see what happens. Do we get audio here? Yeah. So you hear a lot of some music, and then you're in the savannah, and there's some animals flying. It looks beautiful. It's not photorealistic, but it's still very immersive. And the funny thing is, you can play God in a certain way. You can plant seeds, and trees will pop up. Let's see a little bit farther. Unfortunately, this is just the music. In the app, you hear the sounds of nature, which also really helps with the immersion. Let's see, maybe this. Yeah, this is better. So this is in space, for instance. You hear this kind of science fiction-like music, and then you go to the savannah, and it sounds like this. That is an elephant that you hear, by the way. And you hear birds. And of course, all of that is in stereo. And then there's this one, which the article that I just mentioned refers to, and it's swimming with dolphins and whales. So here you're underwater, and there are actually whales swimming underneath you, and there's this huge whale that passes by gently, and you can stroke it and caress it. So one of the people that was part of that research group actually said, I love swimming with dolphins, and it makes me forget. And the pain is not just forgotten during the experience, but also for hours afterwards. So this had a long-lasting effect, strangely enough. The other app that I can recommend, so this one was called Nature Treks. I think it's about $8 or $7. The other one is called Real VR Fishing. And from what I've read, I haven't bought it myself yet. But this is one of the most immersive VR experiences anywhere on any platform. And it's fishing in a 3D environment that is photorealistic. Like the trailer shows you this pond. There are birds flying in the sky. And you can walk towards the water. And then all of a sudden you have a hand with a very realistic looking rod in it. And you can start to fish. And even the fishing itself, the fishing simulator is very well done because it will show you where the fish is struggling. And according to people that have already checked out this game, you can almost physically feel the pull of the fish, even though, of course, that's impossible. But that's your mind believing the situation. There's another one. You're sitting in a boat. There's fishing in the harbor of San Francisco. This one is, I think, near Tokyo. And this must be kind of a Scottish lake or something like that. It looks amazing. And so this is definitely. It also has a lodge where that has an aquarium, and every fish you catch, you can either sell and then buy new equipment with it, or you can put it in your aquarium. And I can't wait to try this out. And a lot of people also in the review say, I don't fish. I just sit there at the water side and I enjoy the environment because it's totally believable. I am there. Now that's always been my dream for VR. It's the ability to transport you into a different reality and take away the stress that you have, and just that it's technically possible. It's amazing. Anyway, that's it for this show. Hopefully you were transported for an hour into my world. And if you want to support me, patreon.com/Father Roderick. I'll see you next week. That's a wrap, and now I'm going to record the after show. I'm kind of experimenting with these audio fragments during the show. I haven't done that in a long, long time because it was technically impossible. With the Rodecaster, I can use that thing as a sound card, so I can play whatever I'm playing on the Mac. And visually, of course, you're still looking at me, so it's kind of boring, but for the people that are just listening to the audio, hopefully that will enhance their experience, makes it a little bit more diverse. I have the jingles, but I also have these little sound fragments. Hello and welcome to the After Show. I'm Father Roderick, and this show goes together with this week's episode of the podcast. And of course, as you know, this is for patrons only. So thank you so much for your support. The previous episode, which number was that? I have to look that up on the website because Apple doesn't want you to use episode numbers anymore. But that was episode number 117. It was posted a little bit later than I wanted. I could only record it at the end of the week, and then Inge didn't have time to put it online. But so this one comes on the heels of the one of last week. But hopefully you were able to check that one out as well. As usual, I'm just going through some of the comments that were made during the episode. Brenda is really looking forward to the Ireland documentary. I also am looking forward to showing it to you because it's amazing. I love my phone. It's incredible the kind of quality that you can film with just a phone. It is everything I hoped for and more. What's hard is to add music, and then, of course, I can't use any copyright music. Of course, I would love to play lots of Irish music, but I can't pay the fees for the licensing, so I have to be creative. So that's why it's taking more time than I hoped, but it's coming. And just this morning, I got the confirmation that I can also show it on television. So I'm making an English version and a Dutch version for my TV viewers, but the TV viewers will have to wait until half November, I think. So the patrons will get it earlier. Brenda also knows that Lego injuries, knows them all too well. It's not fun. And Crumple Noodly is very stable visitor to my YouTube streams is wondering, hey, no Lego? So for some people, I'm the YouTube guy who does Lego, but I'm also doing other stuff like vlogs, like podcasting. So, hey, that you get more than one thing for the same price. Alan reminds me of the Commodore 64 game based on the first Ghostbusters movie, and I do remember that game. I'm such a sucker for the Commodore 64. That was one of the computers that was permanently on my wish list and that I never owned. I think I owned a Commodore 64 for a few months. When I had my first job, I finally made some money and I bought myself a third-hand Commodore 64 way after that thing was popular. But as a kid in school, some of my friends had a Commodore 64. I loved the games. Commodore 64 could do 3-channel audio and could do sprites, whereas I was stuck with a Spectrum, a ZX Spectrum, that couldn't do sprites and only had, I think, 2-channel audio. And I was so jealous of my friends that had Commodore 64s. Alan says, well, they're doing a reboot of Ghostbusters. Man in Black 4 was also good, much the same, but refreshed and watchable. I don't really share that opinion. I thought that Man in Black 4 was a huge disappointment, and totally forgettable. If you would ask me what happened in the movie, I don't know, something with aliens, and then they were supposed to travel around the world, and it just everything felt so fake. Nah, it was not good. Clasham wants to know, how is Ireland? I wish I knew you were here. I would have bought you a pint. Well, hey, I'll return to Ireland. I know the way now. But Ireland was amazing. And it's incredible that I was there for 10 days or 12 days, not even 2 full weeks. But because we did so many different things, we visited so many towns, and I went for walks, and we climbed mountains, we went to the sea, it feels as if I've been there for a month. And I'm pretty sure that if you see the video, you'll also be amazed at how much you can see in just 12 days. It's an amazing country. Let's see. Do Catholics believe, Matthias wants to know, that Jesus died for their sins? The only time I met a Catholic, she said she did not believe that. That, of course, is a very common thing to say in a Protestant context, that Jesus died for our sins. It's what the Bible says. Do Catholics believe that? Well, that is asking, do Catholics believe what the Catholic Church teaches? A lot of Catholics don't believe everything that the Catholic Church teaches, and it's usually because of a lack of catechesis, a lack of education. A lot of Catholics are Catholic because, well, their parents were Catholic, and they brought them to church every once in a while, but they never received Catholic formation. There is no education in schools. We don't have we have Catholic schools, but Catholic schools do not give children a solid Catholic education. So a lot of Catholics are just Catholic by name and a little bit by culture. But the whole question of Jesus dying for our sins is a very nuanced thing. It's what do you mean when you say that? We believe that Christ took on himself the sins of all of us. Not just the sins from the people that came before him, but also our sins, and he paid the price for it. That's just part of the way the Bible describes it. But what does that truly mean? There are, even in the New Testament, different models to kind of get a grasp of what is happening in the crucifixion of Jesus and what was truly his sacrifice. That it is a sacrifice is without a doubt, and Catholics are meant to believe that. Mass, when we celebrate Mass, it is also, again, the sacrifice is not a repeat of the sacrifice. Jesus made that sacrifice once and for all, but when we celebrate Eucharist, we believe that we become co-present to his death and resurrection. It's almost as if time is condensed. It's like a fourth dimension type of thing. Time is condensed in that one moment of the consecration when Jesus and his sacrifice, his death and resurrection we are becoming contemporaneous to that, and it's truly in our midst, and we are there as well. So you can interpret that in many different ways. Jesus died for our sins. Is it retribution? Is it vengeance? Did Jesus have to die because otherwise God had to kill us? I think most of us would be very uncomfortable with that kind of interpretation. However, it is still something you will find in some of the letters of St. Paul, for instance. You'd see that Jesus paid a price, and justice needed to happen. But that's not the only way to describe it. That would be like a legal way to approach it, the mystery. Because ultimately, what happens in the crucifixion and the resurrection is a mystery. It's always beyond our comprehension and perception. Doesn't mean you can't think about it. And so another approach would be the approach of love. This is a sacrifice of love. In some of the Eucharistic prayers, we say Jesus had loved the people. Now he gave them proof of his love to the extreme, or I'm not sure about the English words there. But the crucifixion is the the Jesus giving his spirit, basically, dying for us on the cross, is the ultimate act of love. And it encompasses all the hatred of all mankind. And sin, in a certain way, is a form of hatred. It's pushing away God. It's pushing away love. And the love of Jesus is so massive. He gives everything. And because it's not just a regular human being who sacrifices himself, it's the Son of God himself who gives everything he has, including his life, on the cross. And that act of love is deeper and wider than any sin could ever go. And so that is another way to approach the redemption in the crucifixion. So what I'm trying to say is, yes, Catholics will uphold. Again, there's a difference between what the Catholic Church teaches and what Catholics believe. But let's say a good Catholic will believe that Jesus died for our sins. But sometimes the language will maybe something that evokes an image that they don't agree with. Because if you just approach it in a legal way, like someone had to be punished, someone had to die, well, let it be Jesus. We would I'm not very comfortable with that, because that kind of depicts the Father as this vengeful God who just needs the account being settled. But that's why in theology you will find all sorts of different ways to approach that mystery. They all point to the center, but we can never grasp the center itself. Good question. We also talked about is the Bible just a storybook? It's just fairy tale? Is it mythology? Or is it based on historic facts? And Matthias says there is the Christ myth theory, which some historians argue for, but it's largely frowned upon by the academic community. That's true. Sando says, I'm painting the stair banisters to earn some money for a microphone. Okay. Are you going to get into podcasting? John says, your mind, not my mind, but the mind is really powerful. With my back and neck pain, if I think about the pain, it gets worse. If I distract myself with TV or games, the pain goes away and I feel better. Might have to look into VR. Well, yeah, by all means. But try to borrow a headset first before you make the purchase. But it's interesting. I'll put the link, or I'll ask Inge to put the link to this article in the show notes so you can look it up for yourself. Actually, I can probably put it in the chat right now. Maybe these virtual dolphins could help you. Let me add that in the comments here, the link. Maybe you can copy, paste, and read it for yourself. I'll also give an update on my own swimming sessions with dolphins. Brenda says, it is a fascinating subject, VR and pain relief, and it makes sense that VR would work better than TV. Definitely a higher level of engagement. That's true. Matthias says, thank you for answering my question. You taught me not to see my doubts and questions as sin, and understanding that human understanding won't understand everything if you understand me. Yes, I understand you. That's exactly the point that I tried to make. It is actually very good to ask questions. And the Jewish tradition is very focused on questions. You can't learn the truth if you don't have any questions. And people that say that they understand everything and that sometimes also measure you, like, well, you need to be sure, those are the worst believers. Because the more you know, the more you will have questions. But also, the more you ask questions, the more you will discover. And so, fides quaerens intellectum, intellectum quaerens fides. So, faith seeks reason, reason seeks faith. So, never be afraid to ask questions. Science is based on asking the right questions, but also faith grows by asking questions. What it also, I think, requires is openness. A lot of people ask questions not because they're really interested, but just because they want an introduction to then pose their truth as the truth and something unique. And there is a difference between what we can know and believe, and also the church. I trust the Catholic Church as a guide in faith, and a trustworthy guide, because it has been entrusted with the guardianship of the truth. Bishops, the Pope, they are here to help us discover the truth, but it doesn't mean that we can't ask any questions or that we don't have doubts. Even the greatest saints have had their doubts and their moments of darkness, and God allows that to happen so that in those moments of doubt, we first make an act of faith. And then sometimes years later, or not at all, we will start to understand. But it is very important that we continue to be vulnerable in faith. The know-it-alls are the worst kind of people, right? They always berate you, but you're not a real Catholic. You're not a good Christian because you don't share what I believe and what I... And if you would ask, and oftentimes these people have not studied 1 hour of theology. So oftentimes that attitude stems from fear and uncertainty. They are insecure. And they try to over-yell that. Is that a word? They try to be so loud that they don't hear their own insecurities. Whereas I believe if you look at the gospel and you look at even St. Peter, he's oftentimes doubting, and it's written down. It's in the Bible itself. Jesus, that can't happen to you. I can't believe that's going to happen to you. I am not going to follow you. That's not going to happen. He's constantly putting Jesus to the test, and Jesus patiently is like, you don't understand it right now. There will be a time when you will understand. Just be patient and open yourself. And I think that's what Jesus tells us. If we have doubts, they can be very existential. My advice is always, tell Jesus, tell God in prayer that you have these doubts and ask him to do something about it. Just be open. Like, God, if you exist and you want me to walk with you, then help me in these doubts. And then oftentimes later on, you will start to understand things. Not always, but sometimes the doubt is necessary for you to open your heart for what God truly wants to tell you. All right, that's it for today. Thank you so much for your questions, and I hope you enjoyed this little extra podcast. I will be back next week. Thanks for listening. Thanks for being a patron. God bless. That's a wrap. I was planning on working only half a day today, and lo and behold, it is 5 o'clock. Time to go home. Well, that was a failed attempt. Oh boy, oh boy, oh boy. Disney launch dates set for Canada, Netherlands, Australia, and New Zealand. Great! Right after I finished recording. You gotta be kidding me. the Walt Disney Company on Monday unveiled the first global launch dates and pricing for its upcoming streaming service, Disney+. Holy moly! Oh, Disney Plus will come to Canada and the Netherlands in tandem with the United States, where the service becomes available November 12th. The Dutch version will cost €6.99 per month or $69.99 per year. That is a lot cheaper than Netflix. Wow. It's $7.75 in US dollars. I don't care. It's going to be available in November. I couldn't be more excited. You know what? I'm going to add this to the podcast. Can I squeeze that in? I can probably add that in addition to the episode. Let me quickly record that. Do I have a jingle for breaking news? That would be cool. Or do I have another unused jingle? No, I don't. Let me see. I'm going to add a jingle. This is too cool. Whoa. I am so excited. Oh, this makes my day, ladies and gentlemen. Star Wars! The Mandalorian! Oh, this is amazing. Wow. Oh, that totally makes my day. Okay, how do I add a jingle to this thing? Where do I have my jingles? I think I stored the jingles in Dropbox. iJingle Webcaster. Now let's see if I can find just a little jingle. What about this one? No, that's not good. Food, games, health, sports, Geek Week. No. I can use this as comic.
I'm quite keen on comic books, especially the ones about superheroes. I find the whole mythology surrounding superheroes fascinating.
Maybe I can use this one. This is
You
Marvel.
ever try these comics? No.
Nah, it's too much about comics. Okay, let's see. Do I have something else? Interstitial? What is this? No. It's just a jingle. Nope. This? News.
We can do the news now. It's all right, everyone.
I want to talk to you about it.
We can do the news. Hold on. Everyone, why are we all standing around? Let's go. Do the news now.
Maybe I can do that. Let's see, what else have I got? Whoosh. I can use this. Nah. No, let's do something else. News. I'm just gonna do that news flash thing. But where? Because I have the jingle leading into the movies TV section, and then I kind of automatically no, that's not gonna work. I'm gonna add it to. I could. How does this start? This is trickier than I thought. Is there a clean cut segment? I think there is. I think this one. Let's see. Yeah, this one I think I started. I can put it at the end, towards the end. This one I haven't used. I'll just insert it into the feed before the technology section. Let me put that right there. Transferring. Okay, here we go.
We can do the news now. It's all right, everyone.
I want to talk to you about it.
We can do the news. Hold on. Everyone, why are we all standing around? Let's go. News team, assemble!
It is time for an extra news flash here on the show because massive
for an on-the-spot news report.
On-the-spot news report. This is exactly the jingle that I need because the news just broke while I was recording this that Disney Plus launch dates are set for the Netherlands and for Canada and for Australia and New Zealand. That covers almost all my friends. So, of course, we were all hoping to hear more about Disney Plus because Disney Plus is going to be the must-have service probably next to Netflix for anyone who's interested in Marvel and Star Wars. It will feature a new exclusive series, The Mandalorian, all the Star Wars movies, the Clone Wars. It will all be on Disney Plus. Plus, of course, all the Marvel stuff, the Disney movies and cartoons. And the only thing that we knew was that it was going to launch in the US. There were rumors months ago about Disney looking into the Netherlands as one of their launching countries because we have such good internet here, and the majority of the people are already very familiar with Netflix and similar services. So this would be a very good kind of testing ground for their service. And there were even, according to those rumors, chances that Disney would launch the service first in the Netherlands before even the United States. Well, that turned out to be a little bit too optimistic, but I kind of gave up on that rumor because we didn't hear anything about it, so I was totally prepared to kind of suffer in silence while the Americans can watch The Mandalorian and I have to wait months before I get to see that series. Well, it turns out that is not going to be the case. Here is the press release from Disney+. The Walt Disney Company on Monday unveiled the first global launch dates and pricing for its upcoming streaming service, Disney+, setting dates for Canada, the Netherlands, Australia, and New Zealand. Disney+ will bow in Canada and the Netherlands in tandem with the United States, woohoo! Where the service becomes available on November 12th. November 12th! That is only a few months away. The Canadian version of Disney Plus will be priced at $8.99 Canadian dollars per month or $89.99 Canadian dollars per year. The Dutch version will cost €6.99 euros per month or €69.99 euros per year. I'm just going to get the yearly subscription, of course. That is a lot cheaper than Netflix. I think I paid 10 or 12 euros per month for Netflix, and there's no yearly discount. So that is a lot more expensive. And I'm even thinking, when Disney Plus comes to the Netherlands, I'm going to say goodbye to my movie theater subscription, which costs like double what I pay for Disney Plus, because I won't have time to go to the movies anymore. I will have Star Wars at home. Oh my gosh, I'm so excited. So the Dutch version is a little bit more expensive if you kind of calculate it. It's about $7.75 per month. So I think it's going to be a little bit cheaper. It's, I think, how much is it? $6.50 in the US? Anyway. Disney said that more international territories will follow and that it expects to launch Disney Plus in most major global markets within the first 2 years. But imagine if you're at the end of the list and it takes 2 years for you to watch Disney Plus. In the US, Disney will also offer a bundled package of Disney Plus, ESPN Plus, and Hulu for $12.99 per month. This will not initially be available outside the US. I don't care. ESPN is sports. Boring. Disney is throwing its full weight behind the new streaming service, which it forecasts will rack up 60 million to 90 million global subscribers by 2024. I would not be surprised. In addition to a massive library of content from Disney, Marvel, Lucasfilm, Pixar, National Geographic, and 21st Century Fox, including being the exclusive subscription video home for The Simpsons. Oh, I like this. The studio is investing heavily in original content with new live-action series based on its Star Wars and Marvel franchises and a new High School Musical series and a live-action update to animated classic Lady and the Tramp among the plans for the platform. And I just recently saw that the revived rumors for a television series on Disney Plus about Obi-Wan Kenobi starring Ewan McGregor. They're already working on that, according to the sources. So, this makes my day. This day will be a day long remembered. Okay, that's a 5-minute edition. I could not skip over that. That is, I'm so amazingly excited. Sweet. All right, I'm going to put this into the podcast tomorrow. I need to go home. It's past my bedtime. Well, almost. I'll be back tonight, for those of you that watch me do the Lego stuff, with more Millennium Falcon struggles, probably. And thanks for now, and I will talk to you soon.